stared at the flickering screen of the auction terminal, his fingers hovering over the cracked display. The numbers didn't make sense. 800 credits for an entire orbital outpost. That was less than what he'd paid for fuel last week. Less than a decent meal at the station's overpriced restaurants. Less than anything should cost in the frontier territories where even water had a premium price tag. He tapped the listing again, wondering if it was a scam. The image showed a three-ring structure floating in dark space, its metal hull reflecting distant starlight. Whisper Station, the text read, fully operational, life support intact, docking capabilities for vessels up to frigate class. Price, 800 credits or best offer. There's got to be something wrong with it, muttered to himself. He scrolled down to the description and found the warnings. Red text filled half the screen. Property disclosure required by Galactic Commerce Law. Previous occupants, 17. Average occupancy duration, 12 days. Reported issues, malevolent presence, psychological disturbances, incompatible energy patterns, dimensional anomalies, unexplained phenomena. Leaned back in his chair at the dingy cafe table. Around him, Crossroads Nexus hummed with activity. Alien traders argued in 6 different languages. Ships docked and undocked with mechanical precision. Everyone here was trying to make a living on the edge of explored space, just like him. Most of them were doing a better job of it. His comm device buzzed. Park's face appeared on the small screen. His old military crew cut now grown out into something more civilian. "Don't do it," said without greeting. "Do what?" asked, though he knew exactly what his friend meant. "Whisper Station, I saw you accessing the auction files. I've heard stories about that place, bad stories. Stories don't pay my docking fees. Neither will a haunted space station." His expression was serious. 17 different species have tried to make that place work. 17. They all ran. Some of them left their stuff behind, they were in such a hurry to get away. Closed his eyes. His cargo hauler needed repairs. The engine made a grinding sound that got worse every jump. He owed money to 3 different creditors. His last 2 jobs had barely covered fuel costs. He needed something to change, and he needed it fast. "How bad can it be?" he asked. "Bad enough that they abandoned it. You know how tough they are. Their whole species is basically one giant hive mind, and even they couldn't handle whatever's on that station." After disconnected, sat there for a long time. He pulled up the incident reports, the official ones filed with station authorities. They made for interesting reading. They had reported fractured consciousness and mass panic. A species called the, who were telepathic, had logged complaints about screaming frequencies that pierced the soul. The lithoids, silicon-based life forms who didn't even breathe oxygen, had written about structural impossibility in fourth-dimensional space. Every species described something different. Every species had been terrified. Walked to the records office, a cramped room near the station's administrative center. Looked up from her desk, her eyes tired from processing endless forms and requests. "Let me guess," she said, "Whisper Station. That obvious. You're the 3rd person this week to ask about it. Nobody ever bids, though." She pulled up files on her terminal. "I've worked here for 6 years. That station has been listed for sale for 4 of them. 37 different species have attempted occupancy. The longest anyone lasted was 2 months, and that was a monk who claimed to be immune to fear. He left in the middle of the night without his belongings. But the station itself works. The systems are operational. Perfectly operational. That's what makes it so strange. There's nothing physically wrong with it. Life support runs. Gravity holds steady. Power generation is normal. The structure is sound, but something about it drives people away." Leaned forward. "My advice, stay away. Whatever saving you can get from that cheap price, you'll lose in therapy bills." Returned to the auction terminal. He had 650 credits in his account, everything he had left. The listing now showed 750 credits as the asking price. Someone else had bid. He watched the number, waiting to see if it would climb higher. It didn't. He thought about his ship with its failing engine. He thought about the debts and the creditors who were running out of patience. He thought about sleeping in his cargo hold because he couldn't afford station quarters. He needed a base of operations. He needed somewhere to call his own, even if just for a little while. Entered his bid, 650 credits, everything he had. The terminal processed for what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds. Then the screen flashed green. Sale approved. Whisper Station was his. 2 days later, his battered hauler approached the coordinates. The station materialized out of the darkness like a ghost ship. 3 rings connected by spoke corridors, rotating slowly to generate artificial gravity in the outer sections. It was bigger than he'd expected. Older too, probably from the early expansion era when humans first pushed into deep space. His control panel flickered as he approached. Just for a second, all the lights dimmed and then came back, probably just electromagnetic interference. Old stations did that sometimes. Guided his ship into the docking bay. The airlock cycled smoothly. The station's computer, speaking in a pleasant, automated voice, welcomed him aboard and registered his ownership credentials. Everything seemed normal. He floated through the airlock into the station proper. Gravity kicked in as he entered the main corridor. The lights were on. The air smelled recycled but clean. Temperature was comfortable. He'd expected dust and darkness, but the station looked maintained. Too well maintained for a place that had been effectively empty for months. His footsteps echoed in the corridor as he walked deeper into the station. He passed crew quarters, empty but furnished. A medical bay with equipment still in place. Storage rooms and cargo holds waiting to be filled. It was perfect. It was exactly what he needed. Then he saw the shadow. It moved along the wall beside him, but not quite in sync with his movement. When he stopped, it kept going for just a fraction of a second. When he turned to look directly at it, it was just a normal shadow again. Stood very still. His hand moved to the small pulse pistol on his belt, though he wasn't sure what good it would do against a shadow. From somewhere deeper in the station, he heard something. Not quite a sound, more like a pressure in his ears, a whisper in a language that didn't make sense. He'd bought the station for 650 credits, everything he had left. There was no going back now. "Well," said to the empty corridor, "I guess we're roommates now." The shadow on the wall seemed to pause. Then slowly it moved again, disappearing around a corner. Took a deep breath and kept walking. He had work to do. 2 weeks passed on Whisper Station and fell into a rhythm he never expected. In the mornings, he worked on his hauler, fixing the engine and making repairs. In the afternoons, he talked with Echo. It was strange, having a conversation with something that existed partially outside normal space, but found himself looking forward to it. Echo was curious about everything. How human ships worked, why people traded goods across space, what food tasted like since Echo had no physical form to eat with. Tried his best to explain, and sometimes Echo would show him things in return. One day, Echo manifested in the central hub while was working on a navigation computer. The space around Echo shimmered and bent, but had gotten used to it. It didn't scare him anymore. "I want to show you something," Echo said. "Will you trust me?" Set down his tools. "Sure, what is it?" "Close your eyes." Did, and suddenly his mind filled with images. Not pictures exactly, but pure information translated into something his brain could understand. He saw mathematics that went beyond anything he'd learned. Equations that described how space folded and bent. Theories about dimensions beyond the 3 he knew. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This is how I see the universe," Echo said. "This is what I am." When the images faded, opened his eyes. He was breathing hard, his heart racing, but not from fear, from wonder. "That was amazing. How do you know all that?" "I am old, very old. My people, we explored the spaces between spaces. We traveled through dimensions your people have not discovered, But something went wrong. My civilization vanished and I became trapped, stuck between your reality and others. For thousands of years I have been alone here waiting. Waiting for what? I did not know until you came. You who do not flee, you who speak with me. Perhaps I was waiting for understanding. Sat down processing this. Echo wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was a survivor. The last of its kind, trapped and alone, probably as desperate for connection as had been desperate for a home. You said you can sense things, said. Things in other dimensions. Yes, the boundaries between realities, the weak points where space tears, the currents of energy that flow through existence. That could be useful, really useful. His mind was racing. Echo, there are places in space where ships go missing, regions where navigation fails. Could you sense those things? Yes, I feel them. The tears, the wounds in space. They call to me sometimes. Before could respond, his comm system beeped. An incoming message from Crossroads Nexus. He played it, and a professional-looking man appeared on the screen. This is Sung from Terran Development Corporation. We've noticed that Whisper Station has an active owner. We'd like to send a team to inspect the property and discuss potential business opportunities. We'll arrive in 3 days. The message ended, stared at the screen, his stomach sinking. What is wrong? Echo asked. That was a corporation, a big one. They want to come here and look around. Ran his hand through his hair. Echo, if they find out about you, they might try to study you. Or worse, they might try to remove you. I own the station, but I don't know if I own you. The space around Echo rippled with distress. I do not want to be studied. The others who came, they tried to understand me with their instruments. It hurt. It always hurt. Will you let them take me? No, said firmly. You're my friend now. I won't let anyone hurt you, but we need a plan. For the next 3 days, and Echo worked together. Echo learned to hide its presence, to pull back into the spaces between dimensions where scanners couldn't detect it. Cleaned the station thoroughly, making it look like a normal, functioning outpost. He moved his few belongings around to make it seem like he'd been living there comfortably. They practiced. Echo would manifest and would signal when to hide. After a dozen attempts, Echo could vanish completely in seconds, leaving no trace of its presence. The station looked empty and normal, just old metal and machines. I am afraid, Echo admitted on the 3rd day. I have been alone so long, now I have you. I do not want to lose this. You won't, promised. Just trust me. Stay hidden, stay quiet, and let me handle this. The corporate ship arrived precisely on time. It was sleek and new, the kind of vessel that cost more than would make in his entire life. 3 people emerged from the airlock. Sung, a woman named Lee, and a younger man called Wu Nam. They wore expensive suits and carried professional scanning equipment. Mr. Sung said, shaking his hand. Thank you for allowing us to visit. We're very interested in Whisper Station's history. You're the first person to remain here for more than 2 weeks. Just making it work, said, trying to sound casual. The station's old, but it's solid, good bones. Smiled, but her eyes were sharp and analytical. We've studied the reports from previous occupants, 37 different species, all reporting unusual phenomena, yet you seem completely comfortable here. I'm not superstitious, said with a shrug. Most of those species probably just weren't used to human-built stations. Different architecture, different systems. It can be unsettling if you're not familiar with it. They toured the station. Wu took readings with his scanner while Sung asked questions about business plans. Was quiet, watching everything carefully. His heart pounded every time they entered a new section, worried that Echo might manifest accidentally. Everything went smoothly until they reached the central hub. Wu's scanner suddenly beeped, and his eyes widened. Sir, I'm getting anomalous energy readings, very strong ones, right here in this chamber. Pulled out her own scanner. I'm seeing it too, and there's something else. She closed her eyes, her face going pale. I feel something like a presence, like we're being watched. Blood ran cold. Must have some kind of empathic sensitivity. She was picking up on Echo despite all their precautions. Sung's expression changed from professional to alert. "Mister, is there something on this station you haven't told us about?" Stood at a crossroads. He could lie, protect Echo, and probably lose any chance of help from the corporation. Or he could tell the truth and hope they'd understand. But before he could decide, something shifted in the central hub. The temperature dropped. The lights dimmed. Echo was manifesting and realized with horror that his friend wasn't hiding. Echo was afraid, and fear made it more visible, not less. "Stay back," said, stepping between the corporate team and the center of the room. "It's not what you think. Just stay calm and nobody will get hurt." Sung's hand moved to something at his belt, probably a weapon. Looked terrified. Wu was backing toward the exit. And in the center of the room, space itself began to bend and twist as Echo emerged from hiding. The central hub of Whisper Station warped and twisted as Echo manifested, gasped and stumbled backward, her face white. Wu's scanner was shrieking with alarms. Sung had drawn a pulse pistol and was aiming it at the distortion in the center of the room. "Don't shoot," shouted, spreading his arms wide. "It's not hostile, it's just scared." "That's not possible," whispered. Her hands were shaking. "I can feel it. The dread, the wrongness. How are you not terrified?" "Because I've been living with Echo for weeks and it's never hurt me." Kept his voice calm, even though his heart was racing. "Echo, please, pull back a little, you're scaring them." The distortion lessened slightly. The temperature rose a few degrees. Sung kept his weapon raised but didn't fire. "Echo," Sung repeated. "You gave it a name." "He's not in it. Echo is a person, or was, or whatever. He's been trapped here for thousands of years, and every species that came just ran away without trying to understand." Looked at each of them in turn. "Yes, he's strange. Yes, he exists in ways we don't fully understand, but he's not dangerous." "I'm reading dimensional instability," Wu said, his voice shaking. "Whatever that thing is, it's affecting the fabric of space itself. That's not safe." "Safe or not, he's staying." His voice was firm. "This is my station and Echo is my friend. If you have a problem with that, you can leave." Closed her eyes, breathing slowly. "I'm an empath. Low level, barely registered, but I can feel emotions from living things, and what I'm feeling from Echo, it's not malevolent, it's terrified." She opened her eyes and looked at with new understanding. "You really have been living here peacefully with it." "With him," corrected, "and yes." Sung slowly lowered his weapon. "This is the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. How is this possible? 37 species couldn't tolerate this entity, but you've made friends with it." "Maybe I'm just lucky, or maybe humans are different." Turned to the distortion in the center of the room. "Echo, can you talk to them? Show them you're not a threat." There was a pause. Then that voice that wasn't quite a voice filled the room. It sounded like Echo, but clutched her head and Wu fell to his knees. Even Sung grimaced in pain. Echo's presence immediately pulled back. "I hurt them, always hurt. Cannot speak without causing pain. Why are humans different?" "They can hear you?" asked, surprised. "I heard something," said weakly. "But it was like trying to listen to 100 voices at once, all screaming in different languages. How do you understand it?" Thought about what Echo had explained weeks ago. Most species are telepathic or empathic or connected somehow, right? Their minds touch each other naturally. But humans are isolated. We can't read thoughts or share consciousness. So when Echo communicates, he can't overwhelm us the way he overwhelms everyone else. Sung was staring at him with an expression of dawning realization. "You're saying that humanity's lack of psychic ability is actually an advantage here." "Exactly. Echo exists partially in dimensions we can't normally perceive. Species that can sense beyond the physical get overwhelmed by his presence. But we can't sense all that, so we only get the part we can handle." Wu had recovered enough to stand. That's incredible. You're saying humans are the only known species that can safely communicate with dimensional entities. I'm saying this human can communicate with this entity, and I'm asking you to respect that. Looked at each of them. Echo isn't a resource to be studied or a threat to be contained. He's a person who's been alone for a very long time. Stepped forward carefully. Can you ask him to show us something? Not communicate directly, but maybe share something visually. I'd like to understand. Nodded and turned to Echo. Can you show them what you showed me? The mathematics, the dimensional stuff, but gently. They're not used to it. The air in the central hub shimmered. Slowly, carefully, images began to form. Not the overwhelming flood Echo had shown, but simple shapes. Lines curving through impossible angles. Fractals that existed in more than 3 dimensions. Colors that shouldn't exist but somehow did. Wu gasped, "That's beautiful." The images shifted, showing what looked like a star map but wrong. Stars were connected by lines that didn't follow normal space. Some stars pulsed red warning signs. "What is that?" Sung asked, his professional demeanor returning. "Tears in space," said, understanding what Echo was showing them. "Places where dimensions are unstable. Echo can sense them." Echo's presence rippled and new images appeared. A sector of space recognized from navigation charts. 3 systems that humans had colonized. And around them, spreading from a central point, a growing tier in reality. The timeline showed it would reach the inhabited systems within a year. "Wait," said, her voice sharp. "Is that real? Is he showing us an actual threat?" "Yes." Echo's voice was quieter now, more controlled. "I feel the wound growing. It will consume those stars. The people there will die. I tried to warn others, but they always flee before communication finishes." Sung was already on his comm device, pulling up the same sector on his own star charts. "That's the Meridian sector. 3 colonies, total population over 2 million. If there's really a dimensional tier forming there." He looked up at Echo with new respect. "How do you know about this?" "I exist between. I feel where reality breaks. This tier grows daily. Soon it will be too large to stop." Felt cold. Echo's been trying to warn people for who knows how long, but nobody stayed long enough to listen. "We need to verify this," Sung said, his mind clearly racing. "But if it's true, if this entity can actually predict dimensional instabilities, then this station just became the most valuable piece of real estate in human space." He looked at. "We need to make a deal. Right now." "What kind of deal?" "Full funding for the station. A research team properly trained. Equipment, supplies, whatever you need. In exchange, you work with us. Use Echo's abilities to map dimensional threats. Save lives." Sung's expression was intense. "But only if Echo is treated as a partner, not a prisoner. I'm not stupid enough to think we could control something that exists in higher dimensions. And clearly, it needs you to translate." Looked at the distortion in the center of the room. "Echo, what do you think?" "I would have purpose again, not just existing but helping, saving lives, fulfilling my people's mission to protect reality." Echo's voice held something that might have been hope. "And you would stay, you would not leave." "I'm not going anywhere," promised. "This is my home now, our home." Was typing frantically on her data pad. "I'm sending a priority message to the Colonial Defense Fleet. If that tier is real, we need ships in position to evacuate. Mister, we'll need you to work with Echo to get precise coordinates and timing." Over the next hour, and Echo worked together, translating dimensional mathematics into something human computers could process. Echo showed them exactly where the tier was forming, how fast it was growing, and which systems were in danger. Sung made call after call, pulling in resources and personnel. Wu set up temporary monitoring equipment, carefully designed not to hurt Echo. Worked on communication protocols, trying to find ways for Echo to share information without overwhelming human minds. 3 days later, human ships arrived at the Meridian sector. They found exactly what Echo had predicted, a growing tier in space, invisible to normal sensors but devastating to anything caught in it. The evacuation began immediately. Over 2 million people were moved to safety with weeks to spare. The news spread across human space like wildfire. The haunted station that nobody wanted had just saved 3 entire colonies, and the human who bought it for pocket change had made first contact with something no other species could even tolerate. Sat in his quarters that night, exhausted but satisfied. Echo manifested beside him, a small distortion in the air. "You did good today," said. "We did good together. I was alone for 3,000 years, trapped, feared, fatting. Then you arrived and did not run." Echo's voice was warm with something like gratitude. "Why? Why did you stay when all others fled?" Smiled, "I'm human. We're too stubborn to know when we should be scared, and too curious to not find out why." "Thank you for being stubborn. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for being human." Outside the viewport, more ships were arriving. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, all coming to Whisper Station, the place that had been worthless until someone looked past the fear and saw the truth underneath. Had bought the station for pennies. It had just become priceless. 3 months had passed since the evacuation of the Meridian sector, and Whisper Station was unrecognizable. Where once there had been empty corridors and silence, now there was life. Scientists worked in converted labs. Engineers maintained new equipment. Diplomats coordinated with governments across human space. The haunted outpost had become humanity's first research facility. Stood in the observation deck, watching ships come and go. His old cargo hauler sat in the docking bay, fully repaired now, though he rarely used it. He'd gone from a struggling trader to the administrator of the most important station in human territory. It still felt surreal sometimes. "You look tired," Echo said, manifesting beside him. The distortion was gentler now, more controlled. Echo had learned to modulate his presence over the weeks, making it easier for humans to be around him. "Just thinking about how much has changed," replied. "A few months ago, I couldn't afford lunch. Now I'm coordinating research teams and diplomatic missions." "Do you regret it? The simple life was perhaps more peaceful." Laughed. "The simple life was me sleeping in my cargo hold and wondering where my next meal was coming from. This is better. Different, but better." Jin walked into the observation deck, carrying a data pad. She was the station's lead, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. "Echo, we need to talk about the latest scans. We're detecting another anomaly, this time in the Outer Rim territories." Echo's presence rippled with concentration. "Yes, I feel it. Smaller than the Meridian tier, but growing. It will threaten 2 systems within 6 months if left unchecked." Made notes on her pad. "I'll forward this to the Colonial Defense Fleet. They're already assembling a rapid response team for dimensional threats." She looked at Echo with respect that would have seemed impossible months ago. "You've saved more lives in 3 months than most people save in a lifetime." "I do what my people once did," Echo said. "We were guardians of dimensional stability. It is good to have purpose again." After left, Song arrived. The young engineer had been working on something he called the Dimensional Interface Project. "Echo, I need your help with something. We're trying to develop sensors that can detect dimensional tiers without requiring you to be present. Can you show me again how you perceive these anomalies?" Watched as Echo and worked together, sharing information in a way that would have been impossible with any other species. Echo could explain concepts that existed in dimensions humans couldn't perceive, and could translate them into mathematics and technology humans could use. This was happening all over the station now. Humans learning from Echo, and Echo learning from humans. It was the most productive scientific partnership in recent history, and it only worked because humans were uniquely suited to communicate with dimensional entities. Later that day, Ara called a meeting in the conference room. She was the station's diplomatic coordinator, and she looked excited. "We've been contacted by the Galactic Council. They want to send representatives here. Multiple species, including some of the ones who abandoned this station originally." Raised an eyebrow. "Why, most of them can't even be in the same room as Echo." "That's exactly why," Ara said. "Word has spread about what we're doing here. Other species are reporting encounters with entities similar to Echo, beings that exist in higher dimensions, things they can't understand or communicate with, but they've heard that humans can." Echo manifested in the corner of the room, his presence carefully muted so the humans wouldn't be overwhelmed. "There are others like me, others trapped and alone." According to these reports, yes, at least a dozen confirmed across the galaxy, different types of dimensional entities, all impossible for most species to interact with safely. Ara pulled up a star map showing the locations. "The Council wants humanity to act as mediators, translators between normal space and whatever exists beyond it." Felt a chill run down his spine. That's a big responsibility. "It's also an opportunity," Ara said. "Humanity would become essential to galactic peace and exploration. We'd be the bridge species, the only ones who can safely communicate with an entire category of beings that other species can't even perceive properly." "Because we're isolated," said Understanding. "Our lack of telepathy, our separated consciousness, it's not a weakness at all, it's what makes us special." Echo's presence grew brighter. "I could help find them, the others who are trapped and alone, guide humans to them, facilitate understanding. My people's purpose continues through humanity." Over the next weeks it began. Ships carrying human diplomatic teams launched from Whisper Station to locations across the galaxy. Each team trained specifically in communicating with dimensional entities. Couldn't lead every mission, but he helped train the teams, teaching them what he'd learned from Echo. The first success came from a team led by a woman named Park. She made contact with an entity on an abandoned mining station in space. Like Echo, it had been alone for centuries, unable to communicate with anyone who came near, but spoke with it, learned from it, and established a relationship. They were amazed. Their hive mind couldn't tolerate the entity's presence, but humans could work alongside it without difficulty. More successes followed. Human teams across the galaxy were making contact with dimensional entities. Each one offered unique knowledge and perspectives. Some could sense things in space that no instrument could detect. Others understood physics in ways that revolutionized human science. And all of them had been alone, feared and misunderstood until humans arrived. On Whisper Station, Echo was different now. No longer just existing and waiting, he had purpose. He spent his days working with scientists, creating art in dimensions humans could barely perceive, and reaching out to other entities across the galaxy. Would sometimes find him in the observation deck, the space around him rippling with colors that shouldn't exist. "You seem happy," said one evening, joining his friend. "Happy, yes, I understand this word now. For 3,000 years I existed but did not live. Now I live, I have friends, I have purpose, I have hope." Echo's presence warmed with emotion. "You gave me this, one human who was too stubborn to run." "You gave me a home when I had nothing," replied. "I'd say we're even." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Ships moved between planets, carrying humans and aliens working together. Somewhere out there, more dimensional entities were being found and understood. The universe was bigger than anyone had imagined, and humanity had found its place in it. Thought about that day in the Crossroads Nexus, staring at an auction listing for a station nobody wanted. 800 credits for a haunted outpost. He'd paid everything he had, expecting nothing but a place to sleep. Instead, he'd found a friend, a purpose, a future for his entire species. The door to the observation deck opened and stepped in. "We're getting signals, multiple signals actually." Echo was right. There are dozens of entities out there trying to communicate. They heard about him, about what we're doing here. They're reaching out. Echo's presence rippled with excitement. My people left me alone, but I am not alone anymore. None of us are alone anymore. Humanity found us. Humanity hears us. Humanity bridges the space between realities. Smiled. Looks like we're going to need a bigger station. Outside the viewport, more ships were arriving. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, all eager to be part of this new frontier. Whisper Station, the place that had been worthless and feared, was now the center of the most important work in the galaxy. And it had all started because one stubborn human couldn't afford to be scared. Because he'd seen value where everyone else saw only danger. Because he'd been willing to talk to something nobody else could understand. In the darkness between stars, whispers echoed across dimensions. Ancient entities calling out, hoping someone would hear. And now, finally, someone did. Humanity heard them. And in hearing them, humanity had found its greatest gift to the galaxy. The ability to bridge the impossible, to communicate with the incomprehensible, and to turn fear into friendship. Had bought a haunted outpost for pennies. He'd made it priceless, not through wealth or power, but through the simple act of refusing to run, of choosing understanding over fear, of being, in the end, perfectly and stubbornly human. And that, more than any technology or weapon or treaty, was humanity's true strength. The willingness to stay when others fled, the curiosity to ask why instead of assuming the worst, the determination to make friends in the strangest places. Echo had been right from the beginning. Humans were different, and that difference was exactly what the galaxy needed.